Welcome. Torah portion, Shelach. We are in the fifth reading of the story of the spies. Let's see here. Okay. We have it in front of us. Yesterday we concluded actually with the punishment, and the punishment was a consequence of the actions of Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, that they were lacking in faith and trust when they saw open miracles, and yet, seeing open miracles, they still question God. So these are not the people that could go into the land of Israel, because there will also be open miracles, and you need to trust in God that He is got your back. Not only got your back, but He's taking care of you in the front too. He's not taking care of your back. He's there for you entirely. And therefore, there was a plague, not a plague, rather, but a punishment that they would be a day for a year, a day for a year. It took them 40 days to scout out the land. So those 40 days will turn into 40 years that the Jewish people will die out, those that are from the age 20 and up. But then we went into, you're going to go into the land and you're going to be successful, and you're going to bring offerings there, that you're going to bring a reich nechayach, a pleasant fragrance, a countenance to Hashem. So actually we continue with that idea. So we are in chapter 20. Oh my gosh. What's going on here? No, it's okay. I was just in the book of Genesis for some reason. Wondering if those verses don't look like they belong here. Yeah, okay. I'll keep it. Oh, it might have been from the class last night. Yeah, that's Chisase boker oila, when you will make Chisase, when you will make ben boker, a young bull, oila, to a burnt offering, zavach, or a sacrifice lefela neder, to a sacrifice that is expressing your vow. Neder is a vow. Oishlamim, or a peace offering, like word shalem, right? A peace offering la Hashem, to God. Vihikriv, verse number 9, and you will hikriv, you will offer, you'll bring it close, right? Al ben bakar, together with a young bull, and others, together with this young bull that you're bringing, right, that we just mentioned in the previous verse, together with that will be a mincha. Mincha, right? Are you ready for mincha? But the verses. Yeah, so like I think you actually are, because I think you're eating it. The meal offering. You said you're not ready for it, so put it aside right now. Amen. So, mincha means a meal offering. Silas, it's made out of wheat, fine flour rather. Shloisha Esrainim, that is 3/10 of fine flour. Bolol, that is mixed b'shemen, with oil. Chetzi ahin, which is half a hin of oil. Okay, those are measurements that we've learned in the past. The yain, together with this this mincha, will also be yain, wine, takriv, that you should offer, lenesach, that is a libation, chetzi ahin, a half ahin, ishe reach nich, it's a fire offering, reach nichayach, that is a pleasing fragrance Hashem, to Hashem. Rashi in number 10. Ishe reach, it is a fire offering that's pleasing fragrance. Eina musav ela ala mincha v'Hashem. Now, what's Rashi come to explain over here? We're speaking about the wine, right? Well, the wine is not a pleasing fragrance. That's not the term pleasing fragrance is not used towards wine. right? Because wine is not burnt on the altar. It doesn't create a fragrance. Yeah, I mean, yes, I know you're all wine connoisseurs, and you like to go take your cup and go around and swish it around. That's all bluff. That's all bluff, just to make you look, like you're, wine connoisseur, right? And then you go and smell it, and that's not a pleasing fragrance, Scott, right? And as Rashi says, that it refers to nothing but the meal offering and the oil, right? Because that's going on the altar, that's being burnt, and therefore there is a fragrance that is coming from the fires. From the fires of the altar, there is a fragrance. But a wine is not a fire offering. Because it's not put on the fire of the altar. Okay? Sorry for all the wine connoisseurs, but it looks like, that's not where the pleasing fragrance comes from. But it is part of the offering. So, so you shall do lishor ha'echad for the one ox, or la'ayel ha'echad, or for the one ram, or l'seh, or for the sheep, v'kavosim, or v'izim, the sheep or the young goat, the young sheep or the young goat. Rashi, right? So we were speaking about a young bull. Now we're speaking about an ox, a ram, and a sheep or a goat, right? Rashi, whether it's a sheep, and whether it's a goat, a kesef and a seh are called in the first year of life. Ayal ben shleisha aser chodesh v'yom echad, and an ayal, a ram, is 13 months and a day old, right? Of a male sheep. In other words, we just spoke about a young bull. You bring the mincha and you bring the libation of wine. Means with all of them you do that. Okay, whatever the animal is that you're bringing, you do that. All right. 12. Mispar asher taseh, and according to the number, mispar means a number, shetasu, that you will do. In other words, that you're going to bring as an offering. So you shall do, and according to their numbers. Rashi and 12. And according to the number that you make, according to the number of the animals that you bring as an offering, so you shall make the libation for each one of them. Shall behemoth, according to the number of the animals that you're offering, so shall be the libations. Right? That's what it means to say over here. In other words, no, meaning whatever your offering is, the point is over here, whatever your offering is, together with each offering has to be the mincha and the libation, the wine. You're bringing with it a mincha, meaning fine flour mixed with oil, and you're bringing it with a wine. That's what this verse is coming to say to you, right? In other words, it's not just with the original one that we mentioned, but then I was mentioning all the different kind of animals that you could bring as an offering. Each one of them, you have to bring the mincha and the libation with it. Okay, clear? 13. Kola ezrach yaseh kacha ezele lahakrivish and reach nechayach laHashem. So every kola ezrach means every citizen, meaning every native born as a Jew shall do as such, as all of this lahakriv, to bring an offering ishe reach nechayach laHashem, that is a pleasing fragrance to Hashem. V'chi yogar yitzchem ger, and when there will be living with you a convert, or those among you in the future generations, and they shall also make a pleasant fragrance to Hashem, as you make it, so they shall make it, right? It's interesting how each time, it seems like uh, to make sure that the convert is understood to be um, part of the of whatever it is. Here it is about a pleasing fragrance through an offering, right? As someone who is born a Jew. But just a thought of mine is that many people would feel that there's a distinction to be made, and the Torah wants to tell us, no, there's no distinction to be made. So it repeats it, right? Um, verse 15, Hakohol, the congregation, Chuka Achas Lachem. It is one statutory law for all of them. And for the convert who resides, is chukas olam, is a statutory eternal law for your generations. Kachem, kager, Hashem. Like you, like a convert, will be before Hashem. Rashi, kachem kager, like you, like a convert. Like you, so shall be the convert. So is the manner of Hebrew speaking. Kegan Hashem, Ke'eretz Mitzrayim, like the garden of Hashem, like the land of Egypt, means Ke'eretz Mitzrayim, just like the garden of Hashem, so was the land of Egypt. Similarly, Kameni Kamecha, Ka'ami Ka'amcha, like me, like you, like my people, like your people. Which means I am like you, and my people are like you, your people. In other words, there's no distinction, right? That's what the verse is coming to tell us. Torah achas, it's one Torah, umishpade achad, and one judgment, yelachem, that should be for you, lager agar be'itchem, and for the convert that dwells with you. And that's the end of today. Let's see from the Rebbe's teachings. Short today. Let's see what we have from the Rebbe's teachings. There's nothing on what we learned today, the book that I have in front of me. So something from previously, I gave over a part of it in a morning class yesterday. This is from a different sikha. So remember when God said, I'm gonna I can't have a dever, I'm going to after the Jewish people, all of them, right, except for the Levites, they all fell for the 10 spies and their judgment about the land, that not be able to conquer. And God says, I'm going to bring a plague upon them and annihilate them, right? That's what does Moshe respond? He says, the Egyptians are going to hear this, and the nations are going to say, God, you couldn't bring them into the land, right? Which I promised them, Vishchatem bamidbar. These are two key words over here. The Rashi's that the Moshe says in the verse, and you slaughtered them in the desert, right? So Hashem says, okay, slach the kidvarecha. I forgive them according to your words, right? Then afterwards, he's still, right? He says he's forgiving, but what does God do? Well, they've tested me these 10 times in Egypt and in the desert, not listening to me. And he gives the punishment of 40 years, right? So the question is, how could it be that it did not come up on Moshe's mind and his claim to God about the Jewish people, about the merit of the Jewish people? I mean, these are your people. This is B'ni B'chayri. This is your child, your firstborn, right? How is it that he didn't make that claim to God, right? All he makes is the claim that how the Egyptians and non-Jewish nations are going to see this. It's like, it's like you go to the restaurant and your kids are acting up, and you say to your kids, everybody's going to think terrible about us. Stop acting this way. Is that the real issue with your child, or is it the child should learn to be a mensch? Right? So here, the most thing is the child himself, not how people are going to perceive. Okay, you can add that to the fact and the way there will be a perception, right? The perception, but that's not the most important thing. The child itself, here the child, the Jewish people. How come he doesn't make that claim? And in the end, God says he's forgiving, right? So if he's forgiving, forgive completely. Why is there a punishment? Yeah. So the understanding to this is that this decree of God to the Dora Midbar, this generation of the desert, right, that they should not enter the land, was not a punishment, but was a natural consequence of what occurred and what they did. Okay? Since going into the land is only going to happen in a miraculous way, right? How do we know that? Because they did come back they didn't lie about what they saw. They did see, like, whoa, this is going to be like, we saw Anakim, we saw giants, we saw, like, they're way beyond us, right? Yeah, exactly. And so that was not the problem, is that they made a conclusion that they lacked faith in God, and the Jewish people lacked faith in God, right? That God could, in spite of the miracle, in spite of the challenge, he's going to make a miracle, right? So they lacked that, right? They didn't see the miracles. So much so that tying in two sichas, another sicha, that he says this 10 times, right? And the 10 times, Rashi brings out 6 of the 10, and the 6 are examples of where a miracle is happening to you and you still complain. Splitting of the sea.
Yeah.
Manna from heaven, right? Those are open miracles that are happening to you, and you still complain. What does it mean? Is that when God is there in an open miracle, you don't have the proper faith, which means, therefore, as a consequence of your actions that have happened now many times over, not once, like the Chet Egel was one time. Okay, you did one thing wrong, forgive completely. Forgiven completely, except for those that were did the idol worship. So 3,000 people that were judged or whatever, but or responsible and made others. But here, you are testing me all these times, means you're not fitting for the job to go into the land. Because to go into the land, you need to be able to have that trust and faith in God. And because it's going to have to be miraculous, right? So therefore, this is not a punishment. This is the consequence of their actions, of, again, the actions that were not just one time and maybe we could teach you. No, 10 times happen. You're not going to be taught this anymore, right? So it needs to be a new generation that's going to have to go into the land. It will not be able to be you that goes into the land. Moshe understood this. Therefore, he's not going to bring that up as a claim, right? So what does he say? He says, but the nations of the world, what's going to happen? Right? What's going to happen? Nations of the world, they're going to say what? What are they going to say?
You're not able to.
Right. What does that do? Yeah, but then it's all about me, right? And it's all about me.
It leads me.
Right. And then it's about the parent and their child, like, you're making me look bad. So God's saying, are you going to look bad, God? Is that, yeah,
No,
real?
what it is.
What is it then?
They said that's going to lead the nations to further idol worship.
It's going to, the whole problem was lack of faith. So the nations of the world now will have even greater lack of faith in you. Because they see that they saw what you did in Egypt. They saw what you did in the desert.
Yeah.
But obviously, there's, you're limited in what you could do. Yeah. Right? You can't bring them into the land. Oh, you can't bring them in the land. Why can't you bring them in land? So what's that going to affect them? Greater lack of faith in God. So you're gonna by killing them, and what does God want to do? He wants to kill them all at once. Right? He says, Akanu bag dever, I'm going to kill them with a plague all at once. Can't do that. Because then you're going to bring lack of faith. The whole point that they were lacking faith, the Jews. So now what you're going to do is compound the problem, and you're going to bring lack of faith to the nations of the world. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what the words mean, right? So through that, he wasn't coming to say nullify any decree against them, but don't do it in a way that it should bring less of a trust and faith in you because of your actions. So in other words, if it's done 40 years over time, okay, those are natural things that happen, right? And it will not bring. And that's what God says. I am forgiving according to your words, meaning literally to your words, that there should not bring, right? That it shouldn't bring to a lack of faith in the nations of the world because of the lack of faith the Jews had. right?
Yeah.
So was there, so it's not implying that there was an ulterior motive in taking the Jews out of Israel, that Hashem wanted to show the faith?
What? I'm sorry. What does that mean?
No, what I'm asking is, was there an ulterior motive in bringing the Jews out of Egypt, in that Hashem also wanted to increase the faith of the other nations? Was whether is that an implied, did we imply that?
Obviously, that's very obvious implication, right? In other words, if you're making a chilul Hashem, profaning God's name in the eyes of non-Jews, what you're doing is bringing less of a prestige, first of all, to the Jewish people. You're bringing less of a connection that they'll have to God through the Jewish people being a light unto the nations. So you're going to lessen that, and therefore you're going to lessen their commitment to God. So of course that's a concern. Here it was the only concern because the primary concern of the fact that they are not the ones who could go into the land of Israel, that was a done deal. That was done, right? They ain't going in, right? So in a sense, and it goes even a step further. The words he uses is lishachatem, to slaughter them, right? So slaughtering, what's the idea of, it's an unusual term, like he's using, to slaughter them in the desert. Like, what are you're gonna slaughter them in the desert? What do you mean slaughter?
That sounds very graphic.
Right. So he doesn't mean that, right?
Oh, he doesn't mean that.
Well, he does. Well, as the Rebbe explains, without the Rebbe's teachings, we understand nothing. Even if you learn the other commentators, until you hear the Rebbe, and he gives the clarity over here, is like it's a different chumash, it's a different God, a different, right? Make sure Rebbe is not kind of being like dramatic to God. He's not taking a tantrum over here and being dramatic. He's like, we're gonna slaughter them in the desert. No, that's not what he's saying. He says slaughter. What is slaughter? Why do we slaughter?
The animal,
Why?
so they can bleed out,
Why?
to eat it,
To make it? Give me one word.
holy? No, not holy.
Kosher. Kosher. Make it kosher without slaughtering. It's not kosher, right?
Yeah,
But Jews would slaughter?
You slaughter it. That's how you make kosher. Yes. Through slaughter, you make kosher, right?
yeah.
Through slaughter. So
Because you
what?
won't be able to eat that.
Because otherwise you can't eat it. So slaughtering means you're uplifting, you're upgrading, and
Yeah.
that's how you're making it holy, is that now you could use it in a holy way towards God, right?
Yeah,
So slaughter, the concept of slaughter is to prepare it for to make it kosher. Kosher means preparing it for something greater,
yeah,
right? For something greater than it would be on its own. So the same thing is over here. That you're going to slaughter them is only in order to prepare them for something more,
yeah,
right? What's that more? Is when you have finished your function in this world, your death is you've finished what you've had to do over here. Now you're going to be elevated or brought up to a higher purpose because you finished your purpose here. So if you finish your purpose here, what are you doing here?
yeah.
Right? So he's saying to bring them to a higher elevated state. Right.
So they're being slaughtered, elevates them. It's
But if you're gonna slaughter them in the desert, right? So they won't get the message. The non-Jewish nations won't get the message that you're doing it in order to elevate them and to bring them to a higher state. In other words, you finish your job over here. They're not going to get that if you do it in the desert. So therefore, don't do it. In other words, don't elevate them to a higher state, right? Because they finished their purpose,
Yeah,
right? So death is not a bad thing. It just
No.
means you're going to the next progressing because you
Yeah.
finish what you need to finish here,
Yeah.
right? So it means, preparing for the next stage.
So wasn't even malicious from Hashem. He just was like, okay, you guys are done. Like your purpose is fulfilled.
Yeah, exactly. Not at all. Exactly. When you read it without this explanation, so it looks like, God is like, yeah, I'm angry. The God of anger is the God of the Old Testament is as people would like to suggest, right?
Yeah.
I know. Here it's on the contrary. And Moshe is saying that to Hashem. You want to slaughter them, in other words, but in the desert? Because if you're doing it in the desert, then they're not gonna get the message that you are bringing them to the next stage of life and elevating them. They finished their purpose here. Because they didn't have the proper faith, so they couldn't go to the next level here in this world. They're not gonna get that message. They're gonna only get the message that you couldn't bring them into the land because you slaughtered them here. Right?
Most will say yes, slaughter them, but
slaughter them in the desert, they won't get the message, right? But in the end, he agrees with him. Slachti, I forgive, kidvarecha, according to your words.
Yeah, he's not
To your words and others, exactly like you said. I won't do it in like one time like this because they won't get the message.
Yeah.
I have to do it slowly. And it's going to be over 40 years.
Yeah.
Why 40 years? Oh, well, again, cause and effect. You went for 40 days. Okay, day for a year. 40 years. Mida connected me. That Rashi said that yesterday. Exactly. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you get this, like,
Crazy.
whoa, it's like a whole different story now.
Yeah.
Whole different God, a whole different Moshe Rabbeinu, right? And understanding also that it's not just like, okay, Jack, you're a bad guy today. You go in the corner, put your nose in the corner. Here's your dunce cap. And, when you finish and you have regret for what you did, you can come back to class, right? You can come back to class. That's just, an angry teacher who's upset with his student, right? And giving them a punishment that is not a consequence for what their actions are. Here, everything is exactly mida k'neged mida, measure for measure, and it's coming from a loving God, right? Who is doing this, right? And coming from Moshe Rabbeinu, who is there for his people, but he understands what he can be there for his people. He can't offer now, God, come on, let them into the land.
Yeah.
No, it's already 10 times that they've already shown that they are not getting the message. They even have open miracles happen to them and they still complain.
Yeah.
Sea splits, like sea splitting, and and you came out safe.
Yeah.
And you're saying, oh, the Egyptians, they're coming out. They must, because they didn't see them drowning. So they, they must be coming out also on the same side as we are, And manna is coming from heaven. So I don't like the taste, this taste is it's not my taste, as we tell our little kids, when you're complaining about something, it's not my taste, Coming from God, from heaven. Where did you ever see food comes from heaven and you complain? It means that you don't have the proper faith and trust in God. So, so you're not going to be able to go into the land of Israel, which is going to have to be miraculous. And you're going to be the ones who are going to be able to bring this mission forward. So you finished your purpose. Yeah. You finished your purpose. So Moshe is even saying that they finished their purpose, right? They finished their purpose. That's what shechita means: is being elevated, you're dying, right? Mm-hmm. So chicken, you finished your purpose in the physical flesh. You finish your purpose, but through shechita, you're being prepared for something greater. That you're going to be consumed as a kosher chicken on a Shabbos table, right? So you're elevating to a higher level. So here they finish their purpose in this world. Now you're going to be elevated to a higher, I don't know, higher place, a more spiritual than this physical. It's not the ultimate purpose, obviously, right? But you finished your purpose, so you're going to be elevated. But in the desert, God, you're going to do it here. You're going to the fact that they have to be elevated, fine. But in the desert, you're going to have an ill effect on others, right?
But they arrived at that position because they were convention.
Huh?
They were conventional all along.
They were?
They were just complaining.
Yeah, so.
So that was their purpose. So their purpose was to complain so that they can become a sweet smelling savor before Hashem. They can be kosher.
They're close. Yeah.
If they were well behaved, what would have been their purpose?
To go into the land of Israel.
Without,
And to continue the mission, God's mission. You finished it. You can't continue God's mission.
Yeah.
You're not the fitting person for the mission,
in
right?
spite of that, you still have
But okay, but it should so that means you're gonna have to die off because there's gonna have to be a new generation that's gonna go and finish off the mission and going into the land of Israel.
Yeah.
But okay, they shouldn't. What Moshe is saying, don't make from this. The whole point is that they had lack of faith. So now you're going to produce through your actions greater lack of faith in the nations of the world, right? So what do we see over here? That Moshe, that this is part of the mission of the Jewish people, that we have to take that into consideration. And that was the only consideration here, right? I mean, there was the only consideration in for the Jewish people and what they did. In other words, it's not going to be a consideration about you continuing the mission. No. You've already, too often, not got the message. So it's, fine. After so many tries. Okay, so it means you finished your job. That's what it means.
The one thing
Well, I don't know, mission accomplished, but you finished your purpose. All
One
right,
thing I
fine.
don't really entirely understand about this shweka is when it says like when you were talking about the natural consequence, that aspect of it, was the natural consequence that because they didn't have faith in Hashem, because the spies came back and they heard what the spies said, and nonetheless they still didn't have faith in Hashem, or not nonetheless, but they didn't have faith in Hashem. Because they didn't have that faith, Hashem wouldn't have been able to ensure their safe. Their mission in Israel.
Exactly.
That's it. I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Because if they
In other words, put another term. I can only be there for you as much as you think I could be there for you. If you think I can't be there for you, by the way, I ain't gonna be there for you. Not as I'm tit for tat.
Yeah.
Not like yeah. No, because in the end, you won't see that I'm there for you.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, miracles are happening and I'm not there, and you're gonna. So it means I can't produce for you because you're not ready to allow me to produce for you, to do for you. I can't do because you're not ready, right? By the way, in human relationships is also an important thing, right? You have to be able to believe in another and to give them the trust that they could come through and make it through and so on. That's what the Rebbe learns, the lesson he learns from this, that, we have to trust in another that they can come through and they will fulfill, and give them that, that capacity to, right? And if you don't, guess what? You create a reality that they won't. At least you won't see it, even if they do, right? Amazing message.
Very powerful.
All right, see you by